And we're on. This is 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm Alfredo Artiaga. Simon Clancy is here. Chris Kaufman is here. And last week, or on Monday, I got cut off by the internet demons as I was about to start talking about Bobby Bonia.
I forgot about that, actually.
Yeah. Bobby Bonia retired in 2001. Okay. But there's a thing called Bobby Bonia Day, which is July 1st. Every calendar year until the year 2035, where he receives on that day, I'm pretty sure in an ACH deposit. I don't think he's picking up a check, although I would pick up a check. I would ask for it in gold, maybe. $1.2 million every July 1st. He is now 58 years old. He retired 24 years ago. Now, you may ask yourself, how is this guy getting paid $1.2 million every single year until the year 2035? Well, it's simple. The Mets didn't want to pay him $5.9 million on his last deal when they got rid of him. So they did a deferred payment and paying him interest instead. So they paid him 8% interest for every day past the year 2011. So Bobby Bonilla, essentially by taking a deferred payment, made $30 million, will make $30 million instead of the 5.9 he's owed. Now, here's the kicker to all of this. The same thing happened to him with the Orioles, and the Orioles are paying him $500,000 every year on July 1st until the year 2035 as well. So, yeah, when I grow up, Simon, I want to be a baseball player that they want to get rid of so bad that they make these deals where they pay me $30 million 30 years into the future. Like, it's just great. Have you ever heard of anything like this ever in sport?
So there's some of the people from England who listen to this podcast or watch this podcast will know that there was a soccer manager called Alan Pardew who was manager of a club called Newcastle United, and he was sacked. And I think Pardew was sacked with, I'm going to say, 8 years left on his contract. And he was, the joke was that, and he didn't work again, pretty much. And he went to Crystal Palace in 2015. He was sacked by Newcastle in 2014. But I'm pretty sure that, in 2021, he was still being paid as if he was the Newcastle manager. And however many managers Newcastle subsequently sacked after that point, the joke was that, well, Alan Pardew is still being paid. And then there was when the final day came where his last payday came, I'm sure it was about 7. There was a big news story about it because it was this dude had been, 7 years of coining in $1 million a year for doing absolutely shit all. So, yeah, nice work if you can get it, right?
Yeah.
Nice work if you can get it. I haven't heard of it in sports, but this is the lottery payment. This is the lump sum versus the. I mean, this is that is that deal. What
would you take, the lump sum or the incremental year on year?
Personally, I've always because of the business that I'm in, I would take the lump sum. Okay. Because I feel like I could manage it properly myself. Otherwise I would not.
So you're not Odell Beckham is what you're saying?
No, I'm not Odell Beckham.
You're aware of that story, right, Simon?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
But I prefer to think that actually Alf was not going to clarify the Bobby Bonia situation at all. He was just trying to say, "Go Tigers."
Don't send me off again, man. We obviously will get to the Jets Dolphins in a minute because that's why everybody's tuning in. But before we started recording, we were talking about tonight's game. So we're recording on Thursday night. We're about an hour away from Detroit, Dallas, which is a pretty decent game, hour and 10 minutes away from kickoff. And I said to so my partner is a Green Bay Packers owner, and so I sort of vicariously live through her joy of being a Packers fan. And so if I had a second team, I don't really have a second team, but Green Bay would be mine. I asked Alf who his was, and he said Dallas, and then Chris said another team. I don't know if I can say Chris because I think ours. Well, I've known you for 25 years, but never knew that this was your second team. Whereas I've always known that Alf and everybody knows about Green Bay. So I don't want to be the bearer of the news that's your story to tell if you want to tell it. But
Well, I was saying, okay. First off, the easiest one is I live in Tampa Bay, so I mean, I could if I need an NFC team, the Buccaneers would suffice. I don't really pay much attention to another team when the Dolphins are kind of sucking because I could just rely on the Heat or something else to occupy my time. But I was such a huge Mahomes fan. Coming out of college, and then I went to the Super Bowl down in Miami when Mahomes and the Chiefs were playing the 49ers, and it kind of was like I joked around since around then that the Kansas City Chiefs are actually my AFC team.
Yeah, actually, I was supposed to cover that Super Bowl, and I told Ethan, no, give my credential to Chris because he's Mr. Mahomes.
Yeah. And then I asked, who do you think your favorite? So I'll get to current player. Who's your favorite non-Dolphin favorite player of all time? Alf.
To me, it's always all those safeties from the 90s. So Steve Atwater, Ronnie Lott, Dennis Smith, very, very good for the Broncos. But if I had to pick one, Steve Atwater from the Broncos.
Big number 27. Chris?
I think that, for growing up, I had the hugest thing for Barry Sanders.
Yeah, me too.
And so it was, that's a very nostalgic, pick. Growing up as Barry Sanders, but otherwise, it might really be Aaron Donald, just because I was, I really liked him a whole lot coming out of Pitt, and then he just the sheer dominance that happened once he started in the NFL, and there was a lot of in-your-faceness about it too, because of obviously a small guy, and a lot of people didn't like him because of that, and but it just what he did in the NFL was entirely crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've always been very fond of fullbacks. As you can tell, I've always backed Alec Ingold. I love Alec Ingold. First of all, he's a nice guy, and he's a good football player. But reaching back into antiquity, Tom Rathman of the 49ers, number 44, great player. And a Dolphin,
Corey Schlesinger kind of guy.
Yeah. You want a Dolphin? Tony Page, number 49. Tony Page.
Tony Page.
He played in that great game against the Chiefs in the playoffs where he came from behind and Clayton beat Albert Lewis on that out route down at the goal line, and then there was the famous 5-yard penalty that pushed Nick Lowry back, and he missed the long field goal at the end of the game.
Yeah, the Chiefs famously had a three-headed monster at running back that year of Christian Okoye at 265 pounds.
Oh, yeah. Nigerian nightmare.
Barry Word at 245 pounds, and the scat back was Harvey Williams at 228 pounds.
Yeah, they were a big old team with Steve DeBerg at quarterback, and that was a good team. That was, do you remember, we hadn't done anything for like 3 quarters, and then Marino hit Ferrell Edmonds out of the end zone for a massive gain up to midfield and kind of gave us a bit of momentum and got us back into that. Yeah, Barry for me. Walter Payton, I was a really big Payton fan. Art Monk, and then there was a couple of others. Oh, Jerry Rice, I suppose. And there was somebody else I was thinking of who I really loved. Oh, Randy Moss as well. I just thought Randy Moss was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe the freakiest player I've ever seen, along with Barry, maybe. What about modern players? Who's your favorite non-Miami? One from offense, one from defense, modern players.
For me, offense, Dak Prescott as a quarterback. He's always classy and very sneakily
very good.
Borderline elite.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
He's always in the MVP conversation. He was again in the MVP conversation.
Should I tell you what pisses me off about Dak? Here we go. That thing really, really annoys me.
Yeah, the thing about Dak is that he has that playoff thing that he can't shake. He's lost 3 times as a favorite in the playoffs. Like, that's an issue. Defensively, that's a rough one, right? It's so many good players.
Well, I think, Chris.
I think that offensively, the getting back to the quarterbacks, I'm probably not allowed to say this.
I know what you're gonna say.
It's Josh Allen.
It's
Josh Allen. I'm not allowed to say that. You know,
I despise the Buffalo Bills. I love watching Josh Allen play.
You can't. I mean, there will be a lot of Miami fans listening and watching to this going, you absolutely can hate him. I find it really hard not to like him. He's just a likable person. He's a great player, but he just seems a good guy.
Yeah.
So
if you were on like your team, you would be such a huge Josh Allen fan, like all of us, like, you know, like, and it's just all aspects of it. His personality, like, I don't know if anybody's like seen all the behind the scenes Buffalo videos and how they like interact with each other and all the different handshakes that Josh does with all the different members of his team and stuff like that. I mean, it's just there's a lot there that's just like, man, damn it.
Yeah. My partner did something when the Bills came over here, and she did something for the NFL over here with him, and she spent half an hour with him. She said he was absolutely delightful, like just a really nice guy, just doing funny accents and just messing around and just making like everybody feel really like comfortable and at ease. And what about defensively? A defensive player that you...
I've always been a big fan of Bobby Wagner.
Okay, yeah, I mean, what a player.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I can think of a
Max Crosby. How can I forget Max Crosby? I love.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like one of the just a guy who's an absolute god, and and has been, with Garrett, Myles Garrett. But I mean, it's just I don't know.
Both
that
him and
have
Max
any special
Crosby.
attachment to him though.
Yeah, they both have the that quality that I really admire, which is. You're on a bad team and you're playing as if it's the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl against, the Colts in week 18. You know?
My two guys, I love Micah Parsons. I just love the attitude he plays with. And I just when you watch him and what he does, like I like Miles and Max are unbelievable. And Miles is like, the greatest pass rusher of a generation. But you watch the amount of times that Parsons, just the way he rushes and the strength he has is just ridiculous. The relentlessness. I think he's frightening as well. Like Garrett seems like a really nice dude, and Parsons seems like a nice guy, but there's just something frightening about Micah Parsons coming off the edge. And then offensively, I am just like you for Josh Allen and you for Dak. I'm just the biggest Joe Burrow homer of all time. I love him as a player, but I find his personality so just meshes with everything that I find joyful about life. He's just slightly unique, slightly different, a bit quirky. I just think I watched that quarterback series on Netflix. I'm just like, fuck, I just think you're so cool. Just like, they'd be my two, I think. So
yeah, you know who's the guy who's growing on me too. I've watched a couple of his podcasts. I'm on Ross St. Brown.
Oh yeah,
right, yeah.
Like I posted
some of them too
on our Discord. By the way, if you want to become a member of our Discord, it's right there under my name, discord.gg/onlyfins.
Up there.
Yeah, you become a member there for $4.99 a month. Do it on a desktop. Avoid the Apple charges. I posted his podcast with Devon Achan, and Devon Achan was kind of delightful on there with I'm on Ross St. Brown. He also revealed that after big wins, him and the single guys just go to Tootsie's.
Is that a strip club?
To watch the late games. To watch the late games.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yeah. And if they don't, we just go to Tua's house. If too many of the married guys get together, okay, we just go to Tua's house for a barbecue to watch the late games. But
did you see the HM quote today? Did you see his Instagram thing?
Yeah.
I ain't need no gender reveal. Mums knew I was him. Which I
didn't see that.
But okay, that and I know I'm giving away Amon Ross St. Brown's podcast here, but screw you, Amon Ra. You make $30 million a year. I don't think you need this podcast money. But in that podcast, Devon Achan sounds like a Dolphin fan because he's like, bro, he's talking to Amon Ra about what happened in the beginning of the season. And he's like, we beat the Patriots twice. Can you imagine? We had a punt return. They returned the kickoff. I score the winning touchdown. I step out of bounds. And then he looks in the camera and he goes, this shit only happens to us.
This shit only happens to us.
His Instagram @ is Himothy.
Himothy, yeah.
Which is quite funny too. But Yeah, we need a big game from Himothy at the weekend if we're going to win.
I'll say.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, we'll do that on the other side of the break.
You see how I segued that though.
Which is
it's good segue.
beautiful.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Okay, as it's Jets Dolphins, and we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. But first, let me tell you about Rula. Taking care of your mental health shouldn't be harder than taking care of your physical health, but when it comes to finding the right therapist, suddenly it's frustrating. You've got long waits, and you're starting down huge out-of-pocket costs. That's what usually stops people from getting help. That's where Rula comes in. Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and the average session copay is just $15. That's $15. Rula connects you to over 15,000 licensed therapists and psychiatrists nationwide. They cut out the guesswork by matching you with someone based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements, so you're not wasting time with the wrong fit. Every therapist on Rula's platform is licensed, vetted, and chosen for their expertise. You're talking to legit professionals who know how to get results. Thousands of guys have already used Rula to finally get the care that they need. Don't keep putting it off. Go to rula.com/3yards. That's the number 3 yards, and get started today. That's RULA.com/3yards. Take the first step, get connected, and take control of your mental health. And of course, Factor. I said it on Monday, and I'll say it again. They're not only with us for the duration of the football season, they're with us for the entire 2026 calendar year. So finding time to cook can be tough, and that's why I love Factor. I'm actually a customer. Their chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious, no matter how hectic the season gets. Support your wellness goals. Enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. Savor global flavors. For the first time, try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. It's really easy. All you got to do is you become a member. You go on their website, and you can pick your meals for the day, and they show up at your doorstep the following week. It's as simple as that. So eat smart at factormeals.com/3yards50off. That's the number 3 yards 50 off, and use the code 3yards50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code 3yards50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-sub purchases. And we are back. All right, Dolphins, Jets. Weather's getting better. I wanted it to be a lot colder, but now it's expected to be in the 40s. Yeah, I want – look, if we're going to learn anything about this team, I want them to go beat the Jets in terrible weather and then beat the Steelers in even worse weather. And then go do it again against New England. If you want to convince me that maybe they've turned a corner with some of these players, I want them to get that experience. It seems like it's going to be 42 degrees at game time and sunny. So it's different than what was expected.
Two are still 0-8 when the temperature's 45 degrees and below.
Yeah. But he did beat the Jets when it was 46 degrees.
Yeah.
And that's 2023. They beat them 34-13. So, yeah, if you're going to bust narratives, start busting narratives now.
Fair.
Let's start very quickly here with when the Dolphins have the football. This is a defense that's kind of devoid of the talent that it had. They play a lot of man coverage. So there's a lot of favorable things here for Miami, but they just got to stay on schedule, right? And it's no time to start changing your stripes. Get behind Achane, get behind your 3 running backs, your tight ends, ball control, get a lead, and essentially start running out the clock with a 2-scored lead. Agree, Simon?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the way that the passing game and especially the quarterback has regressed over the last few weeks, and certainly the very mediocre season that he's had, I just think continue to just use that run game. And it was interesting to see Jalen Wright being used pretty early on. I think he had the second carry of the game on Sunday, and then I think he carried again. Then we didn't see him for the rest of the game. I don't know if he got hurt.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was a bit weird that and then Ollie came in, and I just think, look, they found not a solution, but they found something that works for them, and I just think they should keep doing it until till someone can stop it. And nobody's particularly shown the ability to be able to stop it. I think they kind of killed themselves against Baltimore a little bit. And they went away from the run game. But, Devon was rightfully the AFC player, the offensive player of the month. He's had a huge month, and you want to see him pick up another 100+ yards against the Jets. It's going to be cold. It's not a game that Tua plays particularly well in. So let's, get Brunskill in the game. Let's get Julian Hill on those perimeters. Let's get Aaron out in front. Let's get Brew out in front and, paving the way. And keep pounding the rock. And I think it's worked, whether that's, outside zone that we've been doing, whether that's the split flow stuff, and whether that's bringing the two big old horses and mixing it up a little bit with Ollie and Jalen. But I just think that has to be the plan moving forwards, because the passing game feels a little bit, Chris, on life support with the way the quarterback's playing. And, we have an elite running back and an offensive line that's beginning to play pretty well and understand its fundamental responsibilities on a down-to-down basis in the run game. And I think that's the way that we do it moving forwards. And if we're going to try and get in the playoffs, that's got to be the solution.
Well, and the easy answer for Miami on offense. Well, I agree with everything that you're saying about Devon Achane. You want to continue to ride that train, until the wheels come off, if they ever do. He's the player of the month for a reason, but go back to that first game and see what's his name, Darren Waller did in the first game against them. And that was, I believe, the first game that he played, right? It was kind of the in your face for doubting me kind of, performance. And I think it was quite eye-opening, that performance against the Jets, not just because of the touchdowns, but really just looking at him on tape and seeing what kind of, savvy that he ran his routes with, and what kind of immediate out of the box, kind of chemistry he was capable of with Tua Tagovailoa. I think that's what Tua Tagovailoa, needs. You're trying to, I realize he's not playing well. And so part of you wants to really minimize him as much as you can. Especially he's going up there in cold weather. If there's no precipitation, though, I think he's got consistent issues with precipitation and wet ball. I mean, I think I don't even know if it's a question at this point. It's just like every time it happens, there's slippery fumbles, and there's really kind of odd, uncharacteristic, bad accuracy. And so if that's not the case, then maybe there is some opportunity to be had in the passing game, particularly with Darren Waller. And that, I think, is not just something that could win the game because of how effective it is, but also get your quarterback some confidence, and that could go even further toward, helping the Dolphins out. Because if he's playing well, the Dolphins have so much better of a chance of winning the game. And that's been too big of an if. Over the season and really kind of for a while now. So I think offensively you're going to have to feature Darren Waller. You're going to really have to go after it, and that's the one that I'm not sure that they're really going to. Even though he had the pair of touchdowns the first time around, I don't think the Jets are going to, build a game plan around taking away Darren Waller. I think there's an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to be a little light at cornerback, but we're going to see Az Thomas start for, I believe, the second time. I think this is his second start. He's going to be playing in place of Brownlee, so he's going to be matched up with Waddle. Everybody's kind of laid out what they're going to do with Waddle, is just put somebody over the top and get somebody in his face. So yeah, those tight ends have to do something underneath. I spoke about this a little bit on our Discord, and Chris was a little cool on him, but I think that this is the way forward for a team that's kind of cash strapped. You got to find roster players that you like on the cheap. What is your estimation of of Greg Dulcich as a roster player going forward for this tight end group? Because it's now 4 games in a row that he has a reception of over 17 yards.
Yeah, I think
games in a row.
I like Dulcich coming out of UCLA. I thought he was a good draft pick by the Broncos, and the only thing that's really held him back has been injuries. So and he's proven that he can stay healthy, albeit in the short term. And he's absolutely got to be in the mix. He's safe-handed certainly seems to have more trust in him than he does Nick Westbrook-Akine, for example. So I absolutely think Dulcich should be in the mix. He was a second-round pick for a reason, or third-round pick for a reason. And he's well-sized. He's got good hands. He can move. He can run after the catch. He's no slouch. He's got that sort of Hunter Henry sort of, skill set. It's just been the injuries that have always held him back. And if he's over that hump, then I absolutely see no reason why he wouldn't be a rosterable player moving forward. And if this new evolution of Julian Hill, the one that we saw 2 years ago as somebody who had blocking potential, who's now, really looks like he can hold his own as a move blocker, but also as an inline blocker. And depending on what Waller does, he's such a tease in terms of his physical ability. Is so good and his hands are so good, but it's just the health. But that's okay. That's not, it's not George Kittle and Travis Kelce and the kid in Arizona and the kid at Green Bay. We're not talking about that level of tight end, but there's three people there that can do some decent things if they can get over the injury bug. And for a team that's going to be looking at all sorts of different re-ups in terms of position groups next season, if you've got a guy like Greg Dulcich and you think, okay, this guy can stay healthy, then he's probably worth investing. He's cheap. He makes catches. The quarterback trusts him, and you can do some things to him. So I like him. I think he can play.
Yeah, this group plus a draft pick, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Your thoughts, Chris?
I just don't care.
There was me eulogizing about the future of Greg Dulcich, and
not a fan of Greg Dulcich.
No, it's just like what am I looking at? What am I looking at that I'm supposed to seize on that I really like? Like, first off, if you take Darren Waller out of this group, I don't believe it's a decent group or something. No, I think it's one of the worst groups in the league. If you take Darren Waller out of it, and that includes Dulcich. Okay, and so. Julian Hill is somebody that needs to be recycled next year, that thrown in the recycle bin, I should say, for somebody else to take. I think that Greg Dulcich it's really about the foil of seeing last year Jonnu Smith and then this year Darren Waller, and seeing what it really is supposed to look like. As far as a guy that can make it, because let's be honest, Darren Waller, as much as I sing his praises, this isn't 5 years ago Darren Waller. This is not, it's not that. That's not the all-pro Darren Waller. We're not talking about that. We're talking about somebody who is, very diminished compared to that, and yet it is head and shoulders to me. If
Smith will be back next season when the Steelers cut him.
What's that? Oh, Jonnu Smith
will be back next season when the Steelers cut him.
It's been entirely possible.
100%.
Yeah, and because he wanted to be here. I know he wanted to be here. Like that was one of the things that they traded him. And I think I talked to somebody who had literally just been with him the day before or something like that, and was talking to him about Miami and his future in Miami, and he wanted to be here. So it's hard to entice me to care when I'm watching Greg Dulcich play. Like, take or leave. I honestly could take or leave. I don't care. Because that's the level of player that we're looking at there. I think it was the number 80 overall pick, and I've not necessarily loved his time and previously with the Broncos and things like that. I just don't really care, and I think it's a bad unit if you take aside Darren Waller. I think that they surprisingly did a decent job replacing Jonnu Smith with Darren Waller, if you take aside the injury thing and the fact that he has a hard time being on the field, staying on the field at his age, coming out of retirement, all those things. If you completely set that aside, then yeah, they did a good job replacing Jonnu Smith with Darren Waller. But everybody else, you can't entice me to care about any of them.
All right, very quickly before we move on to the defense, Nick Westbrook-Akine should be inactive going forward. Agree, Simon?
Probably.
And just play some of the younger guys.
It's just not working. I mean, although he can block in the run game, that is important.
Yeah.
And
Consistently.
Consistently. He's easily our best blocking receiver in the run game. And I think that is a point we shouldn't overlook, given the direction this team should be heading in. So no, I wouldn't make him inactive at all.
All right.
I think that if Cedric Wilson would give me anything at all, then maybe, because he has that history of being able to block in this system as well. But he's not giving you anything at all. That Nick Westbrook-Akine has very bad chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa. It's been obvious for the entire season, for whatever reason, and I don't really know what that is. But that they don't have anything going together. But does he really have much more with Cedric Wilson? I mean, I don't know about that either. And so again, it's just like, if you need a blocker, all right, I get it.
Well, Tua did miss Cedric Wilson on a big one, so at least I trusted him to miss him on a pass.
Yeah, well, but Cedric Wilson, like, for one, Cedric Wilson didn't give him a big window there. Like, that was a shoebox window to try and get it over the heads of the head of the two underneath defenders and not overthrow the receiver. That was a shoebox. And Cedric Wilson looked like a defensive tackle trying to run underneath it. It was, not a strong look for him. So I think that, and actually the guy that I've been intrigued with that had a bad performance when he did get a one chance this year is Taj Washington. And I would like to revisit that, because one bad performance the first time you really get a shot doesn't necessarily conclude your career. And if it did, then there'd be some players that were never was, kind of players that are actually good.
All right, moving on to the defense. These defensive tackles, these three rookie defensive tackles, it looks like that's the way forward. Anthony Weaver volunteered today that, those guys are a huge part of what they're going to do the rest of the season. And he spoke about Zeke Biggers, and he said that Zeke Biggers has transformed his body within the season. And the reason he wasn't playing early in the season is kind of like what I speculated, is that the way he put it, you put somebody out there and tell them drive, and then they tell you, I've never driven before, then they're going to crash. So essentially, he didn't trust Zeke Biggers in his scheme to start the season, but he does now. The three defensive tackles, I guess that's the way forward for these guys. And against the Jets, Simon, they're a team that does seem to get themselves off balance. Even in close games, they stop running the football. So it could be just as simple as that, right? Just win on early downs and let them do Jet things that they've been doing for the last few weeks, even in their winning streak.
I think you got to try and force Tyrod Taylor into unmanageable third down situations by trying to shut down Breece Hall and putting them in third and long situations. I think Justin Fields just runs that offense better than Taylor. But I think that, they do have decent offensive players, and, they've got good tackles. I think that they've got good players on the outside. Obviously, Hall's a good player. Tight ends are improving. So, I think it's hard to have a trap game when you're 5-7, but, the Dolphins shouldn't overlook the threat that the Jets have. And obviously, one of the things that has historically hurt us is quarterbacks that can use their legs on late downs, which is what Taylor can do. And he did that to great effect at the weekend against the Falcons to essentially win the game with that run at the end of the game. It's great getting them into third and long, but maintaining that rush lane integrity is going to be so important in terms of just making sure that, we don't get up past Taylor, which allows him to duck out of the pocket and pick up, critical third downs in what I suspect will be a close game. It's going to be cold, and really it's going to come down to who run blocks, who runs the ball better and who makes the least mistakes. And if the Dolphins, don't turn the ball over and aren't tardy in that area, Chris, I think they'll probably win, but I think it'll be a very close game.
I think, well, regardless of whether the Dolphins win the game or not, you got a Tyrod Taylor in the backfield as a quarterback. He is a smaller quarterback. He is a mobile quarterback, and so if you try and put too much on the edge players, then you're probably going to be disappointed. Because a guy like him can really escape and use angles and athleticism and quickness against edge players that are trying to bend the corner. So yeah, you are going to need a Zeke Biggers in there at defensive tackle. He's a monstrously sized player. And so you want monstrously sized players like Zeke Biggers and like Kenneth Grant getting in there and dominating the backfield against a smaller quarterback, because you want him to feel overwhelmed by that size. And I think that's something that they're going to have to, if you're talking about the rush lanes, those outside guys are going to have, those outside edge players are going to have to be the ones that maintain the rush lanes and the containment. Whereas the inside guys like Zeke Biggers and like Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips are going to have to make hay in pass rush and try and dominate that backfield against Tyrod Taylor. And the sort of the forgotten man in all of this that I tend to think can be a forgotten man a little bit, and I hesitate to say that, but Breece Hall, do you formulate the game plan around him, or do you think that you can dominate Tyrod Taylor so much that Breece Hall gets his, but you tighten up in the red zone and it doesn't matter? And I think this might be a game where that's okay. That's not, we're not gonna, unless Breece Hall suddenly goes for 300 and just dominates the entire game, which I just don't think is going to happen. Not with the defense having matured to where it is right now. I think, yeah, you're going to have to formulate this around pass rush, and that's what Zeke Biggers is good for. He's still a pass rush guy. I'm not buying the hype that's saying that he's suddenly, a good defensive tackle and that he's going to be good against the run and things like that. No, he's a pass rush guy. But that's okay for this game. I think that this game is going to be good that way.
Yeah. Last thing before we get into the predictions, Anthony Weaver name checked Mason Taylor, and if you look at that first game, he went for 5 for 65 in that game. If you remember that first game, Miami was in cruise control until Mason Taylor converted a few third downs, got them on schedule. They got on the scoreboard, and they kept within touch of that score. It never really got outside of 2 scores for the Jets, so they were always in contact of 1 score away, and it's a ball game again. Mason Taylor did that. Now, Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be manning the nickel. That's a feather in the cap of Miami, right? Like that's an advantage this time around to try to zero out Mason Taylor, right, Simon?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think what he has done is performed really well in those kind of contested catch situations, and I think Taylor has played a ton of reps at a very difficult position. He showed good hands. I think I don't think his draws a great deal of targets necessarily. His yak hasn't been particularly good, but I think his blocking metrics, and don't forget the offense they ran at LSU in terms of the concepts, the run concepts are very similar to NFL run concepts. I think he's been pretty solid in that department, although I think with most tight ends that come to the league, doesn't matter how good of a blocker you are, there's college football strength, even if it's high level Division I college football strength, and there's NFL strength. I think Kenneth Grant certainly found that out early on, and I think we'll see a very different Kenneth Grant in year 2, just from a physical point of view, in terms of, because if I was Anthony Weaver, if I was Mike McDaniel, I'd be making sure that he is spending his off season heavily working in the gym to just get stronger. I think that's what Mason Taylor would need to do as well. So, but yeah, that's a matchup that you kind of, Minkah against Taylor, you would take Mink because he's been playing really well. As I tweeted during the game, I think, he looked like a safety who was definitely over the top of the hill and going down the other side of it in terms of, albeit a great career. But he's kind of revitalized in the nickel, Chris, hasn't he? And he's played really well. And it's kind of made us not miss Kader Kohu. And, there are bigger decisions ahead on that front. But actually, you argue whether or not we'd be a worse defense if Minka wasn't playing at the level he's playing at, even if Kohu was there. Maybe Kohu plays on the outside and Mink plays on the nickel, but you kind of get the impression that they'd probably have put Kader in the nickel and tried to kind of keep Minka at safety regardless of what's happened. But, what that's done has allowed Dante Trader to get some pretty decent snaps, and certainly in the box and coming downhill, he showed some real promise. And I don't particularly ever want to see Ashton Davis playing a great deal of safety for us anymore, but I think Trader's been one of the bright spots, and I think Mink will do a good job in the nickel on whoever he's up against. And if they motion in Garrett Wilson to that area, then you'd have confidence that Minka can play that as well.
Well, Garrett Wilson's out for this game.
Is he? Well, there you go. Then you can cut that out.
He's still out. I think that really, when it comes to Mason Taylor, I'm not necessarily looking at Minka Fitzpatrick. He is a slot, but they have a slot receiver, John Mechie, that they're gonna use. Now, I don't particularly think that highly of John Mechie. I mean, give puts and takes on him, I guess, but I think that actually this could be an opportunity, because the guy who shined last week, opportunity for the Jets. The guy who shined last week was A.D. Mitchell, the new guy that they traded for. And he's on the outside, where I think that, if he's what he is, and why I didn't really like him coming out, is I feel like he's got a consistency issue. I think that there's some consistency in the way that he looks in the ball, and the way he catches it, and it's not always clean. I know he didn't have a lot of drops in college, but that started to show up in the NFL because he was never really a clean catcher. But if he's on, he's a guy that's like, when he's off, it really looks bad on tape. Like, some of the effort looks really bad on tape. Always has. When he's on, though, it's a very different story. And he was clearly on last week. And so if we have Minka Fitzpatrick on a player like Mechie, who is, not really that important, and meanwhile that opens us up for A.D. Mitchell to do some damage against us with contested catches, that's something that I would look out for. Meanwhile, Mason Taylor, I just don't think that Minka Fitzpatrick is going to be, covering Mason Taylor up and down the field as much as he's going to be probably covering the slot receiver more often than Mason Taylor. So I don't know. I think that it's not going to be, which, by the way, the safety that's been getting more play for Miami and playing better lately is actually Melifonwu. That's something to keep an eye on, because it was not looking good very earlier in the season, first half of the season, and it looked like he might be a bad fit for this defense. But I think more and more you've seen not only Anthony Weaver kind of going to him in the lineup, which kind of indicates how he feels about how he's getting the defense, but also he's playing better. And that was a player that at one time played really well in Detroit, just can never stay healthy. So that is something to look at and going forward, I think. But the guy that I'm worried about could take over a little bit and just show up, and is the inconsistent one, is the A.D. Mitchell guy. A.D. Mitchell as a outside wide receiver, because I still think we are vulnerable on those outsides with Jack Jones and Rasul Douglas. I mean, we saw Rasul Douglas, he had that big interception. He also looked like a defensive tackle running, speaking of with the ball in his hands, but he also had that big touchdown that he gave up too, right? And I think that Jack Jones, we've seen the inconsistency on Jack Jones too. Jack Jones has an inconsistent day, and A.D. Mitchell happens to be hot. Shit. That could be, that's a real potential.
Yeah. Anthony Weaver was effusive with his praise of Minka Fitzpatrick, and he name-checked him by saying that usually when guys get older at safety, they get farther and farther away from the line of scrimmage. But he feels he has two players in one. He feels he has a guy that he can trust in the deep third. And he name-checked them by comparing him to two guys that he's coached before, Chuck Clark and Kareem Jackson, as slot players. So he obviously trusts them. All right, it's time to pick the game. Pretty simple. Devon Achane when the Dolphins get him the ball 20 times in a game or more, meaning 20 touches or more, Dolphins are 5-0. Their record when he doesn't touch the ball 20 times or more, 0-7. So stands to reason, get him the ball. Against the Saints, they did one thing that I think is a huge no-no and a problem. Tua Tagovailoa, his ADOT was over 11.5 yards. Way too aggressive. Now is the time that we want check down Tua and get the ball to Devon Achane in the passing game. Last week, only 2 targets, 1 catch. Not good enough. Get the ball to Devon Achane in the passing game. Make that your passing game along with Darren Waller, and your offense will hum. Minka Fitzpatrick will hold down Mason Taylor. Miami wins, let's say 24-16. It won't be a blowout, and there'll be anxious moments. But 24-16, Dolphins look better on offense by getting the ball to Achane in the passing game. What say you, Simon?
17-14 Miami.
I should pick against Miami here. I feel like I should. And it's just, and I sort of wonder if my fandom is taking over the fact that I'm not, because I'm going to pick the Dolphins here like 21-20. But I should pick against them. They're not as good on the road. They're not as good in the cold. There is that potential. Tua's not playing well. They're not playing well. Their last 2 games, they barely walked away with victories against very depleted teams and the Commanders and the Saints. They probably should have lost both games if we're being honest with ourselves. The Jets are, here they both walk in having won some games. The Jets won 3 out of the last 5. The Dolphins won 4 out of the last 5. And they are playing in the Jets stadium. So overall, I'm like, that's kind of pointing toward the Jets. I'm going to pick the Dolphins here, but I'm going to pick the Dolphins for a different reason, because they have to win this. Because if you think about where the Jets are and where the Dolphins are, it's a great tale of 2 teams. There's sort of there's a thing happening with these 2 teams. The Jets were pushing a bad build with Rodgers and Sully, and then they kind of reset during the offseason. And then during in the trade deadline, we saw them go into hyperdrive with that and sell off more guys for assets. The Dolphins were pushing a bad build at the end of last year, and both teams were highly indebted teams as far as salary cap is concerned, and the Dolphins decided to maintain the course and to keep going and prioritize the present. So the Jets prioritize the future, the Dolphins prioritize the present. Right now they meet in the present, right? So the Dolphins have every reason to win here. Right, that because they prioritize the present while the Jets prioritize the future. If they don't, if the Jets win, what could be more embarrassing for the Miami Dolphins than that? Right, you prioritize the present, they prioritize the future. They're sitting there with 5 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks in the next 2 drafts. They went from being one of the more indebted teams in the NFL to being one of the most debt-free teams in the NFL right now, 31st in salary cap debt. Their future is clean and clear and open, and ours is anything but, because we prioritize the present, they prioritize the future. And yet if you meet in the present and they beat you anyway, what could be more embarrassing for the Miami Dolphins as a franchise? A team going against, and these teams don't have that much separating them, and that's what's so disturbing. They've won 3 out of the last 5. We won 4 out of the last 5. Now we meet on Sunday, and people are like, are they going to win? Are we going to win? I don't know. Like the Vegas odds makers aren't really sure of it either. I'm not really sure of it. None of us are really that sure of it. And if the Dolphins lose, you've got to take that as supremely insulting, because how could Steve Ross sit there? He's in New York, right? He's in New York. He hobnobs with all of those people that work for the Jets in their front office and in the C-suites up there, right? He knows them all. And they're sitting on 5 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks and a completely clear deck salary cap-wise, while the Dolphins are bloated and pushing a bad build and have a bad quarterback situation that they need to get rid of, and just their prospects are dim as shit. And because they prioritize the present, the Jets prioritize the future, yet they meet in the present and they still lose.
How do you really feel,
so
Chris?
Awful. What's that?
How do you really feel?
Oh, well, let me tell you. No, I'm just so I will predict the Dolphins victory, in part because I think they just need it that badly. But you know, it's a tough one because away in the cold, I mean, these things work against them historically.
Yeah. No, and you also have this thing where, you know, teams that, let's face it, they're kind of tanking. They're getting a little bounce from starting Tyrod Taylor because they've kind of taken off since Tyrod Taylor started. Usually they have a reversion, like a reversal that is very quickly upon them. I think it's right here. You know, teams like that don't win 3 in a row, let's say. Devon Achane, I forgot to mention this in his Amon-Ra St. Brown interview, revealed that during the deadline, he was like kind of nervous that they might trade Waddle, but that Champ Kelly called him and told him, you don't have to worry about anything. You'll be here. Like, he was not available. So whatever that means, he says, I was chilling. I knew I wasn't going anywhere because Champ Kelly called me and told me we're not trading you. So they're going to have to, if whoever the new GM is going to have to make a decision on Devon Achane. And if you're looking at the numbers, 2 running backs are getting big deals next year. Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Also in that, that's why I posted it on our Discord. Also in that interview, he said, I want to wait to see what they get because they have 5th years because they were first-round picks. So that's going to be an interesting thing for the offseason, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
If Detroit are paying Jahmyr Gibbs, which they absolutely should, Miami should be paying Devon Achane, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, kind of helps is that he said those guys were first-round picks and I was a 3rd-round pick, so it's different for me. But
I also suspect Gibbs gets paid before the 5th year even kicks in because he's clearly an unbelievable player, and they're going to probably want to get him locked up sooner rather than later. So hopefully that will be an indicator as to the kind of ballpark that Miami will be operating in. But you can't keep letting good players walk out the door. At some point, you've got to have some sort of foundation.
But it is interesting because both teams are in a similar situation with respect to their salary cap. They are very indebted teams. The Dolphins are 6th in the league in terms of their salary cap debt, which is to say that, you know, cap entries in their future, that they have a bunch of cap entries that don't reflect payers that you're playing or players that you are paying in the future. It's money that you've already paid, you know, prior to the end of 2025. Both teams have a lot of that. The Dolphins are 6th in the league. The Lions are, you know, kind of up there. So, you know, that's something to keep an eye on, that they've got to, you know, the Lions have the justification to go deeper into it, I think, because they're still a good team.
Yeah.
The Dolphins don't have justification for going deeper into that, but they do have a really good player. So that's, you know, that's the back and forth.
Yeah, Devon Achane also said that he never feels any pain when he gets hit because he says he knows how to get hit, but he doesn't like hitting people. And Amon-Ra St. Brown asked him, so you're saying that you don't like run blocking? And he's like, and he just stared into the screen and he smiled, which is, I mean, pass pro. I asked him, he asked him, so you don't like pass pro? And he's like, yeah. All right, last thing for those of you that are going to be watching,
we can tell
or listen to us, because there's only 15 minutes left until game time. I want to get you guys on record, so maybe we'll talk about it because it's the rare, with 4 weeks to go, loser go home game. Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, by the way, will play. He is active. Versus Cowboys. If you do the numbers, the loser of this game might as well just pack it up. Who wins? You know who I got. Who wins, Simon?
I suspect Detroit win because they're at home.
Chris?
Yeah, same. I don't trust and also the trust factor on Dallas is not high with me.
All right. That's it. There is no more. On Monday, we will talk about Jets Dolphins, the result of that game, and then leading into what could be, which is another loser go home game if they win this one against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But till then.
See you, boys.